she was one of the very few visible women engineers in the 1930s and 1940s, and
Yeah.
young women would write to her. So she discouraged them because it wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah.
And if they ignored her advice, that meant that they had enough gumption to actually make it in the field. Hello, I'm Troy Eller English, archivist at the Society of Women Engineers, and welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. The Society of Women Engineers is turning 75, and in celebration, we're doing an archives takeover of the podcast to celebrate our upcoming Founders Day event in May at the Cooper Union in New York City. And so we are going to dive into the archives to unpack some of the stories from SWE's storied history. I am thrilled to be joined today by Mary Mann, librarian and archivist at the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art. Mary, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Troy. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So SWE, as we know it today, was founded in 1950 at the Cooper Union's Green Engineering Camp. There was a bit of a controversy early on about calling that the founding meeting of SWE because several small independent groups calling themselves a Society of Women Engineers had sprouted up before 1950, and the student group at the Drexel Institute began meeting as early as 1945 informally, and then they held a conference, a student conference in 1949. But ultimately, SWE's leaders decided to peg the May 27th, 1950 meeting at the Green Engineering Camp as SWE's founding meeting because it united the different student and professional groups that were all operating independently of each other. But that debate kickstarted SWE's Archives Committee and the SWE's robust record-keeping practices, which has been very good news for historians and also for my career. So, Mary, can you tell us a little bit about the archives at the Cooper Union, and then what the archives tell us about that founding meeting at Green Engineering Camp?
Sure. I'm glad you have a job, Troy. I'm glad this gave you a job. Um, I'm glad I have a job too. The Cooper Archives is a really fun place to work. We are the archives of the college, and we collect anything that informs our understanding of this place and its community. But that's a really fun collection of stuff, in part because the Cooper Union, for its first 50 odd years, was really more of a community center than a college. So our barriers have always been pretty fungible as far as who's in the community. So we have a lot of really fun stuff in our records that you wouldn't necessarily think of for a college archive. The records of Green Camp are pretty substantial, but the SWE founding meeting is only one folder. So I'm really glad you have so much great stuff. That also illustrates something that I always think is really fascinating. We can't ever really know what's going to be historically important, what to document, what to keep. So as archivists, it's sort of like we're living in history all the time. And I find that my community is still sort of figuring that out as far as yes, you are important. Yes, you are worthy of being kept. The things you make, the things you do.
Mm-hmm.
What we have for the SWE event is event planning. So correspondence, logistics, funding. So my knowledge of the event is really pretty lopsided. I know that a towel and a pillowcase were lost and we found, but I don't know what any of the panel speakers said. I did share with you a map that Cooper used to distribute with directions to Green Camp, just to give a sense of what this meeting was about. So I'm going to pull that up and share with everybody, share with the world. So Green Camp was in Ringwood, New Jersey. So you can see in this map where the Cooper Union is in the bottom right corner, and then where Green Camp is sort of right in the middle. This is a sheet of directions that were distributed by Cooper to all kinds of folks, Cooper people and non-Cooper people. We sold Green Camp in 1970s, but we had it up until then, and Mary Blade was the director.
It's now a state park, and so if anyone wants to go to the location of the founding meeting, you can do that.
You absolutely can, and maybe should. I bet it's beautiful there.
Yes, yes. I've been scouting on Google Maps.
Oh, nice. Troy, we
Yes.
should go. We should plan like a Cooper Swede
Yeah.
picnic.
Yeah. Well, we have photos from the founding event, so I've been comparing the photos to what is still there in the
Mm,
aerial views, and some of the buildings are still there.
what do you have?
We have a video, an 8 millimeter silent film that was taken by Morty Gurla, who was the husband of founding member and later SWE president Miriam or Mickey Gurla. So the family had that digitized and donated to us a
Oh,
copy
that's so
of
cool.
the digitized copy. We have photographs. We don't have the planning documents, so I'm glad you do. That's
Yeah.
part of archival research is that things are scattered everywhere. But we have the program, we have the list of participants, we have some firsthand accounts from people who attended, talking about their experience at the founding meeting. Some of those are very humorous. Some of the early members, they were aspiring comedians, I think.
I feel like you would have to have a sense of humor to be a woman in engineering in the 1950s.
Oh, absolutely. The things they put up with. I just gave a presentation this past weekend to a local cultural center for International Women's Day about early automotive engineering female pioneers in Detroit. And the things they put up with and the way that people talked about them, absolutely ridiculous. So you had to have a thick skin and a little bit of a sense of humor, I think,
Yeah.
to make it through.
That actually leads me to a quick one more thing I wanted to say about, well, we have time to talk, but another thing I wanted to say about this Green Camp event was that one thing that I was really heartened by and frankly surprised by was, at least in the documents that we have, it really seems like the community here at Cooper, at least, was really supportive of this event. The correspondence with the Cooper president that Mary Blade had, like trying to organize it, male professors from Cooper were speaking at the event. Um, and that is really heartening.
Yes, I think there were some small pockets of very strong support. So Drexel Institute with the faculty, with the staff. I think that really helped those women to succeed. Getting through the program, an engineering degree is not easy. Um, and then also to persist in engineering after they graduated. That strong support helped the society in its nascent years when it was tiny, 61 founding members, and they had no money. And,
Yeah. And this founding
and
meeting was, from what I know about it, organized by students. Uh,
organized by students, yes, with a little bit of support from
yeah.
some very prominent active women engineers. So, Grace Murray Hopper was at the founding meeting, a preeminent computer scientist, extremely well known. And that was earlier in her career. She became more well known later in her career. But she
Cool.
helped to develop the COBOL programming language,
Wow.
computer programming language, and the term computer bug, or like a bug in the software, that all goes back to Grace Murray Hopper in her
Oh,
journals.
that's
That
great.
when one of the computers didn't work, she found a dead moth or fly on one of the relays and
That's
taped
where
it.
that comes from? I had no idea.
Yes. So, this dead moth is why the whole computer, which, took up an entire room at that time, couldn't, function. And so she coined the term computer bug.
That's amazing.
Elsie Eves was there. So she was a very prominent woman engineer. She graduated in 1920 from the University of Colorado, and she had a very active career as she was the editor of business news for the Engineering News Record magazine or
Cool.
newspaper. She started that position in around 1927, I believe. She was the first woman to be admitted as a full member of the American Society of Civil Engineers.
Nice.
And she was one of the very few visible women engineers in the 1930s and 1940s. And
Yeah.
young women would write to her to ask for career advice. And and we have a lot of those letters.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And she frequently discouraged them because she thought, it was during the Great Depression. So she discouraged them because it wasn't going to be easy.
Yeah.
And if they ignored her advice, that meant that they had enough gumption to actually make it in the field. So she was at the founding meeting. Lillian Moeller Gilbreth was not at the founding meeting, most popularly known as the mother in the book and movie Cheaper by the Dozen. She, had 12 children, and her husband was interested in time and motion studies. She had a PhD in literature, but she became interested in his work and sort of learned through him. They were at the forefront of industrial engineering. So she wasn't at the founding meeting, but they made her an honorary member at the founding meeting, which we know from the meeting minutes that we have in the archives.
If
So,
we had that many kids, it was probably hard to make it to that founding meeting.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
In the photos that we have from the founding meeting, there's a lot of young women who are, wearing late 1940s, 1950 dresses. And then there's this one woman who is wearing like a white blouse and pants, and she's like the only person in these photos that's wearing pants, and it is Mary Blade.
Mary
Um,
Blade! I love Mary Blade.
Yes. So, she reminds me a lot of Katharine Hepburn in the style of dress in these photos. And so she just kind of stands out in these photos. Can you tell me about Mary Blade?
I would love to tell you about Mary Blade. I'm a little bit obsessed with Mary Blade. And the more that I learn about her, the more I am obsessed with her. She's so amazing. She was hired here at Cooper in 1946 to teach machine engineering, and she was the first female faculty member in our engineering school. So when we opened in 1859, everything was open to anyone of any race, gender, religion. Religion was kind of a big deal back then. We hadn't had any female faculty in the engineering part of the school until 1946, which is kind of bananas because we were graduating all these women. But she was also like, none of us operates in a vacuum, right? So like there's the Cooper Union, but there's also culture. And so she, I believe, was possibly the first female engineering professor in New York City. I know that NYU and Poly didn't have anyone earlier than that. I need to do my due diligence, but
Mhm.
it was early for the country as well as for Cooper. She went to college at University of Utah. She met her husband Ellis there, and they were really big outdoors people. They actually hiked around Mexico for a year before she was hired at Cooper, which was like not something that young people were really doing in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Cool. And this passion for the outdoors is how she ended up being the director of Green Camp. She was made the director of Green Camp in 1955. She wrote a report in 1966 on education at Green Camp, which it's digitized, it's available on our website. She writes, someone said that education occurs when we have exploration, conversation, and creation. These are the elements which constitute the happenings at Ringwood. And by Ringwood, she's referring to Green Camp. So this is like a space she was really curating and thinking about as a big part of the students' experience as students. And she also writes about student leadership as a unique aspect of Green Camp. And I've interviewed several alumni from the 50s and 60s. And the ones that were involved with Green Camp say that that was all her. She made the camp feel special and useful to students by letting them take an active role in the programming. She was also, you might already know this, but I didn't until kind of recently. She was also an accomplished artist. So she's this amazing engineer. She's doing all this stuff both as a full-time professor at Cooper and in Green Camp and externally, but she's also becomes this accomplished artist. She studied with a bunch of different people, and the Burnaby Art Gallery in Canada still holds some of her work. Her published work She's published a couple things, and it often touches, I find, on this duality of her nature, this art and engineering thing. She has an essay on the value of creative thinking for engineers
Hmm.
in this 1963 book called Essays on Creativity in the Sciences. And there's also this really gorgeous book called Chair, and it's all about teachers. And she has this really beautiful essay in it on the marriage of form and function. Um,
Okay.
and that was a thing that she was thinking about a lot. In 1956, she did a series of lectures in our Great Hall, which we have recorded and digitized and also available on our website,
Oh my goodness.
called
Yeah.
The Shape of Things and How They
Hmm.
Affect Our Behavior, which is like really early design thinking. Like people are still talking about that stuff now. She just seems to have had this brain that worked in really interesting ways, and to me, the way that her brain works and the stuff that she was doing really illustrate the mission of Cooper because it's the advancement of science and art, and she's doing it.
Yeah, this is fascinating because I would say within the past 10 years or so, there's been more discussion in engineering about STEAM, which is
Yeah.
adding art to STEM. Very interesting that, that she was talking about that, 75 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, she totally was. Also, one more thing I want to say about her was that she had a cat named Miss America of Vancouver, which I just love.
Okay.
It's great.
So I'm wondering, at the very beginning of this video from this film from Camp Green, which SWE members called it Camp Green instead
Oh,
of
okay.
Green Camp. This film that was taken, the film is about 2 minutes long. It's a silent film, and it's just like small, like 2 or 3 seconds at a time. But the very first clip in this film is Mary Blade carrying a cat out of what appears to be the bunkhouse, and so now I wonder if that's the if it's her cat. I had assumed that it was just some random cat that had wandered into
Very well might have
the
been.
bunkhouse. Yeah.
In that
But
era, we also had a library cat at the Cooper Union, so I think there were just cats running around. Can I take a photo of Mary actually?
yeah.
I think this is a beautiful photo of her. Like she just looks
Hmm.
really good, but I also think that it really illustrates the time. So this is Mary Blade. She is teaching a class of all dudes. This would have been most of her days. I mean, we had female students since 1859, but weirdly, I would say the 50s, we see a dip. Like it's less than earlier. These guys are coming back from war, and there's a lot of encouragement for women to give over jobs to men. If it's hard to get a job when you graduate, why go to school for a thing?
We see that in SWE's archives as well, and in enrollment numbers, and
Yeah,
yes, not
yeah,
just at Cooper.
yeah. Again,
Yeah.
none of us are in a vacuum.
Right, right. So, I'm wondering how the experience changed for women at Cooper over the years, particularly in engineering.
So for, like I was saying, the first half century of Cooper's existence, it's open to everybody. But the science and engineering courses were exclusively taught at night. So they were open to men and women, but we do see more male students. And I think that's another reason because respectable women walking around at night wasn't such a done thing in the 1860s. But also, like we were just talking about, it was hard, then as well to find a job in science or engineering as a woman. That's true up through the mid 1900s. We have an archival collection from 1946 engineering graduate Norma Rankin. Her
Hmm.
married name is Cozy. And she got the same degree from Cooper as her husband, and he was able to go on and be an engineer. And the only job that she could get was teaching high school science. And that's how she put it, that the only job I could get was teaching high school science. So that's her sort of feeling about that situation. And I think it's
Yeah.
important to underline that because it shows that we don't exist in a vacuum, that culture, that law, that policy all affect how people are able to like move around.
Hmm.
And for a woman trying to be a scientist, like in the 19th century and after for a long time, I think it was probably like just trying to walk through Jello all day long.
Yes.
Hard. Uh, but we did, even so, like Rosalind Palmer was our first female student to receive the Cooper Union Medal, which is the highest honor, or was the highest honor. We don't give it anymore. And that was in 1866. So that's
Okay.
happening really early. Sort of fast forward to 1946, we get Mary Blade. So big milestone, first female
Hmm.
engineering professor. And then Eleanor Baum was our first female dean of engineering in 1987. And when she was hired at Pratt just 3 years prior, she was
Hmm.
the first female dean of engineering in the country.
Yes.
So it takes till the 1980s till we have a female dean of engineering. And you guys probably have stuff on her.
Yes, she was a very active SWE member. We have lots of information about her in the archives.
Mary Blade actually produced a document called Women at Cooper Union
Hmm.
in 1978. And she writes about how few women were practicing engineering in the US when she was starting out. The number that she gives, and she doesn't cite the data, but she says only 2,000 women among over 1 million men. And she says those numbers were changing due to what she describes as growing awareness by young women that these occupations promise interesting and rewarding careers, which is cool, and a decrease in a stereotype notion of ineptness in mathematics. And I think those things are still like that's work that's still happening.
Still happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
In
Um,
78, that year that she made that, women were just 11% of the engineering class at Cooper.
mhm.
So it's still a small percentage.
That's small, but it's not as small as other institutions. So at that time.
I don't know where we're at now. I should find out our current stats. But I do feel like, yeah, the US as a culture is still very much in the area of growing awareness and decreasing stereotypes. Like
Hmm.
we haven't made it. There's never a made it. Maybe we're always going to be working on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Still a work in progress.
It seems like the field has come a long way, but I don't think that women engineers are all that different from those 75 years ago. Like students walking around here at Cooper probably worrying about a lot of the same stuff. So Troy, I'm wondering from you, how do you use this rich history in your work while staying current?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So SWE's archives they're very roughly 300 cubic feet of boxes and then many, 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 many gigabytes of electronic records. And so when I first became the archivist in 2008, the archives were, used by historians for some scholarly books. And then internally, we use the archives primarily for like biographies of its members, awards write-ups, and obituaries. Over time, we've learned how the archives support the society in a very broad way. So externally, many more people are writing about the history of women in engineering, and so SWE's archives are supporting books and articles. We've collaborated on exhibits at the National Inventors Hall of Fame, and SWE's materials have been at other museums. Podcast, the entire third season of the Lost Women of Science podcast was about Yvonne Young Clark, who was SWE's first Black member, and they use the SWE's archives extensively. And
Nice.
that's an excellent podcast. The whole thing, even the seasons that aren't about Yvonne, are fantastic. And very archives heavy.
When did she join SWE, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so 1952, she was SWE's first Black member. She wasn't sure if SWE was going to accept her. Her son said that she sent a photograph of herself so that SWE would understand that she was Black. I've searched through the archives, and SWE was just very interested in professional credentials. She had an engineering degree. Welcome to the society. Some other interesting ways that SWE's archives have been used is an oral history with past President Lois Graham, who was an early member of the society, was used as the basis for an experimental opera in Chicago.
Oh, cool.
The archives have been used for documentaries. There was one a couple of years ago on PBS's American Experience, about Maria Telkish, who was a pioneer in solar energy. and SWE's first Achievement Award recipient. In 2014, John Oliver mentioned SWE's scholarship program on his show Last Week Tonight, and then SWE immediately needed all the information I could find about SWE's scholarship program and how many scholarships I had awarded and how much had it awarded over time. And then also turns out that the actor Jack Black's mother, Judith Love Cohen, had been an active member of SWE in the 1960s and 70s.
Cool.
So in 2017, he was on The Price is Right. He won. He donated the money to SWE. And so then we were able to share information about her career with the public and also with his family. His brother is a very well-respected engineering professor in California.
Cool. I didn't know anything about Jack Black, so that's great.
Yeah. So, and then internally, the SWE, we use the archives for articles in the magazine. I have a standing column in the magazine, but we use them for, the archives to support other feature stories as well. We use the archives for various marketing projects. I provide background research on SWE's longstanding relationships with corporate partners. I verify membership and leadership history. When award season rolls around, I get a lot of requests from members who need help remembering what roles they've had in the society. And then, I help the board and Senate occasionally finding policies and procedures that might impact the decisions that the society makes moving forward. We've had some special projects. In 2015, the marketing company wanted to freshen up SWE's brand identity, and as a part of that, they wanted to redesign the logo, and they came to me in 2015 saying, hey, can you provide some examples of SWE's old logo, how it was used over the years? And I'm like, well, I can do that, but you should know that in the 1990s, the society tried to redo its logo, and members were not happy. The conversation was not good. The Council of Section Representatives issued a cease and desist order.
Wow.
So I provided information about that. The marketing company was able to understand the members' feeling about the logo and able to work in some of that history for the redesign. And the conversation was much more positive that time.
That really illustrates to me, like, every level, a little bit of history provides so much context that makes things easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
In everything. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sometimes, having that background knowledge can save you some pain moving forward.
Yeah.
And then this year, 2025, is SWE's 75th anniversary. So we have an exhibit, a timeline, a book, there's videos on social media, and you can find all of those at swe.org/75th.
Woo, sweet. What if I just am like a regular me and want to research in the archives? Can I just ask you guys?
Yes. Yeah. So SWE's archives are at the Reuther Library at Wayne State University in Detroit.
Oh, great.
And we are open to the public and we take walk-ins. Give me a call or an email before you come, and I steer you toward which boxes you might want to look in for whatever topic you're researching. I would also be happy to give anyone listening to this podcast a secret backstage tour of the archives.
That's pretty cool. How can these historical materials, inform modern efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Over the years, I've learned that SWE's archives show that the society has always been interested in and concerned about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the context of, developing a robust engineering and technical workforce. Even though it hasn't always used the words diversity, equity, inclusion,
Yeah.
it's always been its focus. I mean, SWE was founded in 1950. One of the participants in that founding meeting was an Asian American woman who then became a member of the board of directors. We talked about Yvonne Young Clark joining in 1952. Another Black member joined just 2 weeks after her. A story that many SWE members know, but you don't, is that in 1957, SWE hosted its convention in Houston. And Yvonne Clark had made her room reservation by mail, as you did back then. But when she showed up, the hotel wouldn't let her stay there because she was Black. And so the president, Mickey Gurla, threatened to cancel the convention right then.
Wow.
And Yvonne didn't want that. She didn't want to ruin everyone's experience, but she and Mickey Gurla and the hotel management came to an agreement where Yvonne still couldn't stay at the hotel. She had family in Houston, so she stayed with her aunt, but she was able to attend the convention activities, but she had to be accompanied at all times by a white SWE member. She wasn't allowed to just be seen walking around the hotel on her own. So I think we can read into that the hotel management wanted her to be invisible, essentially, to the rest of the hotel guests. But SWE members basically took her with them whenever they walked anywhere around the hotel. So they sort of paraded her around. And she thought this was wonderful. She fondly talked about this years later, but to make sure that she was visible so that they couldn't hide her. And then because of that, a year later, SWE passed these board policies requiring equal accommodations at conventions. And then they also required that meals at conventions meet religious dietary requirements, which I think was a little progressive for the time, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this also, it's not that long ago, which is also crazy to me. Like, this is one person ago that
Right.
yeah.
It has this history of trying to make the society more inclusive for its members because they just wanted more women to have engineering as an option, and that for society to welcome them and their skills and their knowledge. They've always been focused on including people rather than excluding them. They haven't always gotten it right over the years, but they've always tried, and they've always over time have moved toward more inclusion, creating a more welcoming and more belonging environment.
Yeah.
And you really see that over the arc of SWE's history.
It's better for humans and better for the field, really. Like,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
more engineers.
It's my hope that by looking at this history, SWE's leaders can celebrate what SWE has done and what SWE's members have done over the years, and then use SWE's history as a roadmap for how to move the society forward.
Yeah, that's one of the best things that we can do with history is learn what to do next.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful. I don't know how you feel about this, Troy. I'm picking up that you might feel the same, but I'm very grateful to work in archives and the perspective that it provides.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful job. I get to learn about many different things, many different people. It's like story time every day. And also learning from those stories. Not just, appreciating that nice things happened in history, but learning from them.
Yeah. Yeah. The past and the future are all wrapped up in each other because consequences exist, right? Like,
Right.
everything has its history. So I don't know how you would even move forward without learning more about the past.
Hmm.
And that's something we talk about with our students a lot, in terms of archival research. If you have a
Yeah,
question about what to do next, look and see what's been done.
a-
A good enough place
absolutely.
to start. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Well, Mary, thank you so much for chatting with me today about archives and history. I look forward to meeting you later. So, as we hinted earlier, on May 6th, 2025, we're coming to the Cooper Union in New York City for SWE's Founders Day Ball. And I don't know, maybe Mary and I are gonna take a little jaunt to Ringwood, New Jersey to check out the the founding location.
It'll get me to escape from my kids, go to Greenfield.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm so excited that you guys are coming to Cooper Union on the 6th. We're so thrilled to have you here in the space.
I am very excited. I look forward to it. To our listeners, we hope that you can join us at the Cooper Union on May 6th, and visit SWE.org to learn more. I am Troy Eller English, and from all of us at SWE and at the Cooper Union, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.